Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, a creature was stirring, and it wasn't a mouse.
What the hell are you doing in my house? I'm Santa Claus. Where the milk and cookies?
I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the Next Reel on True Story FM. When the movie ends,
Our conversation begins.
Friday After Next is over. We was on our lunch break.
Craig and Day-Day are getting something they never expected. Jobs.
Daddy, how I look? Like a damn snitch? Yeah, boy.
If there's any problems, you just blow. Toot toot. And this is your booth. Keep it real, huh?
We top flight security of the world, Craig. Ah! We ain't no damn top flight security of the world. Damn! We Craig and Day-Day. I hope don't know.
Andy, Friday After Next. So when we ended last week, you and I did not have a great experience with Next Friday. Is that fair?
No, that's fair to say.
Not great. And I had told you in the lead up to that conversation, or at the end of that conversation, that what I had heard was that Friday After Next was better than Next Friday. So, Andy, I stand here before you, just a guy watching a comedy about dope and theft.
And Christmas.
And Christmas. What did you think about Friday After Next?
I agree. I do think it was better than Next Friday.
I do too. I had a rollicking good time. Was it as good as Friday? I don't think it was as good as Friday. Was it really fun? Did I laugh out loud watching the film alone? A true testament of a great comedy? I did. I laughed out loud alone.
I think you may have found it funnier than I did, but I still do say it was better than the previous entry in this franchise.
All right. Well, let's start there then. What do you think, if you were to characterize the what made this movie funny to you compared to the last movie, where would you start with that conversation?
Well, I feel like we talked about with Next Friday, the real problem with that script is they had an incredible opportunity to take what they did with the first film and now move it to the suburbs and give us kind of the craziness going on in that neighborhood. And what they did with the neighbors, I can't remember the brothers' names, but they just kind of gave us these kind of criminal antagonists, and it kind of just took a lot of steam out of other opportunities that they had with what they could have done with Pinky, what they could have done with some of these other neighbors to really kind of give us a story of the suburbs, which would have been great. They succeed in what they failed with there by giving us a sense of the people who all kind of have these, well, some of the people, not all of them, who have shops in this strip mall. And to that end, I really enjoyed what they did. They also give us a little bit of the neighborhood where Craig and Day Day now have an apartment. And so I felt like I had a lot better sense of the people in the story, and I enjoyed that. And that's what I think the franchise is strongest with, is when they give you kind of these real people in the neighborhood in just like these crazy situations. I mean, obviously they're really amped up comedy, but at least they felt real in the first film. I bought into those characters. In this film, I felt like it was a little more going down that road, even though the story, they take the story on some pretty crazy turns that I think gets to be a little on the silly side. And some of that stuff did not work for me. But on the whole, I felt like where they succeeded was giving me characters that I actually found to be, big, over the top, crazy characters they didn't always work for me, but I felt like a much stronger connection with them than I did in the previous film.
I did too. And I think the characters that were introduced in the previous film, the replacement from Smokey to Day Day, become fully realized for me in this movie. I think Day Day, Mike Epps' Day Day, showed up in this movie in a way that he didn't in Next Friday. I laughed at him constantly in this movie in a way that I didn't connect with in the previous. I thought he was great.
Especially
did you love Day Day?
When he first gets his uniform and is on the job, and is just like stopping everybody. I mean, that was like, okay, I'm totally digging on Day Day and the way that he's reading his job, and now his attitude or his relationship with Craig, who is just like, what are you doing? You are crazy. Like, that was a lot of fun when he goes on to and yells at the four old carolers, the four old ladies caroling out in front of the liquor store, and yells at the kids and everything. Like, that was a lot of fun. I thought that was a side of Day Day that they kicked it up, because he was kind of this cowardly character, and I think that's there. But I think that the way that Mike Epps played him, when he's a coward, but now he's given some sense of authority by having just a strip mall security shirt, all of a sudden it like does something to his brain that
that's
I thought
right.
was
It
pretty
makes
funny.
him world-class top flight security professional. He's amazing. I love it because he's kind of in this movie. These two together, Ice Cube and Mike Epps. Day Day is essentially Craig, like missing a frontal lobe. Right? There's something going on where he just does whatever he wants, whatever he thinks, and I think it is. I think it's really funny, and I think together they're really great. And I feel like Craig too. Ice Cube played him in a much more sort of involved capacity. That was a major, a critique we had of the last film, that what was his purpose? It wasn't even his movie, the last movie.
Yeah, right.
This was absolutely, Craig and Day Day and their movie together, and I felt like we were in it on the ride with them.
Well,
Craig
they had
showed
a
up,
job.
too. Yeah.
They both had a job. They had, right out of the gate, they had something that they had to do together because this Santa thief breaks in and steals a bunch of stuff, including the thing that their rent money was hiding in. And that puts them that gives them their motivation for the rest of the film. Now they have to try to, do this job successfully, figure out a plan to get some money so that they can pay their rent before the end of the day so they don't get evicted. That was the momentum that we needed in the story, which we didn't have in the last one because it wasn't his house. He was just trying to help them get money so they didn't get evicted. So it just didn't carry the same weight.
Our nemesis too is another thing that they fixed in this movie in so many ways. It wasn't as convoluted. It wasn't as crazy. There were competing stories of competing stories of the characters who were kind of out to get them and steal from the store and sort of do them harm in the neighborhood. But they all made sense in the context of their experience in this strip mall.
I have issues with the antagonist. I mean, the main antagonist, I guess we would have to say, is Miss Purley. She's not even, what is she? She's just the manager of the property.
The complex manager.
Yeah. So she's the one who is going to kick them out. And she's a pretty disgusting older woman that makes me laugh quite a bit. But she really, she's the antagonist. And to that end, I think that she works as the one who they owe money to. Yeah, she's funny. Yeah. The bit she has with Craig's dad, I thought was actually really funny. And when his mom came in and it kicks to this little, high speed of them kind of scurrying around this little cat fight, that made me laugh. Like there was some good comedy there. Mm-hmm. But we do get a little complicated with the number of antagonists. And to that end, it got a little, it wore on me a bit because we have the thief Santa. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the film, when we finally find out who he is and all this, it's just like, it's a nobody and they stop him. And that was really flat and lame.
Can I ask you a question though? At any point, did you think that Santa was going to end up Terry Crews?
Never.
Oh,
way too small body type.
I didn't either. I didn't think that either. Not once. I just wondered if you did because
I kept wondering.
I'm sure
I'm like,
you did.
Well, it's one of those stories, and this is why it ended up being frustrating because it's like this is a story where you're going to have that Scooby-Doo ending where they're going to pull the Santa mask off, and it's going to be somebody from the story, and you're going to have a reason as to why he's doing it, and it's all going to make sense. And that's what I was waiting for. And at the end, it's just like, oh, okay, it's just some random guy living on the street or living out of a foreclosed house. Okay. And then they get him in the end, kind of because, Pinky's limo driver crashes into him. It was just, that was frustrating for me. And likewise, we ended up setting up this potentially really interesting story of what happened to the previous security guards. Nobody will tell them. And then we find out that, the little ladies, their sons or grandsons, I guess, are some thugs who, after Day yells at them, they sick their thug grandchildren on these guys. And, but we never get any good resolution there either. And so that was a really frustrating introduction of some potentially interesting antagonists who obviously did something to the previous security guards that we never really find out about. And I'm like, okay, but what's going to happen with that? There's got to be something. And the only thing that happens is at the end, when they're chasing the Santa thief, they end up, for some strange reason, coincidentally running through their house. And, these guys are the ones who throw the Santa out the window. And I don't know. It just, all of a sudden, it just hit this point where I'm like, why are these guys in the story? it was that all got me pretty frustrated.
Okay. Well, I can hear that. I guess I understand that. For me, it felt like it was confusion within the bounds of the universe that they had set up, and that these guys had a direct role in it. Like, I can totally see, given what the rules that they have built for us, why we're going to have a callback to the grandmothers from the very beginning of the movie, and it's going to be a chase will ensue. I bought that. Like, I felt like that was a thing that felt in its Friday way, earned to me. The part that I did have trouble with, and there are elements in this movie, more than a few, that I struggle with in this movie because of how dated it is now, right? It is incredibly dated, this movie, more so I think than the other two, in the realm of sexual assault and violence against women and violence against men. And like, there are lines in here that are horrifyingly prescient when Terry Crews is holding Day in a sort of a chokehold, and he says, "I can't breathe." Like, that is just a chilling line watching this movie today. Terry Crews in particular, who initiates a sexual assault in this movie. To have him do that, of all people, who has since come forward as a victim in real life and an advocate for victims of sexual assault, it was chilling. I found those kinds of elements chilling and harder to stomach, I think.
Well, and that is an interesting thing, because I really agree too. And honestly, I felt it quite a bit with the last film too, where I kept going, yeah, honestly, even the first one, but but I don't know. I felt like, I don't know. You're like, that's not really a #MeToo type of movie, is it?
No,
not really. There's definitely a tone that these sorts of films have that are a little frustrating. I do think that when you look at somebody like Terry Crews, that's an interesting situation that, I would really be curious about a conversation with Crews, just to see, because obviously this was 2002, long before he went public, which I think was 2016,
17.
Yeah, like many, many, many years later. And we have a kind of a very different perspective, because, I mean, here was a guy who in 2002 was, relatively new in his acting career, I think, but largely was known more for kind of the football, and he had a persona. And when you have that type of persona, even if something had happened earlier in his life, it's like the sort of thing that you probably bury because of the persona that you are asked to portray at the time. So,
yeah. And so the question is, this, unlike, let's compare this experience watching this movie and specifically with regard to, let's just say, the sexual assault stuff. How do you compare watching this movie that is an artifact in history to concerns around watching a Kevin Spacey movie?
It's not a question that I think is complete apples to apples comparison, because it's more the type of thing, because you're comparing the story to a person's career, right? And so I think that it's almost something that you compare more with something that, has blackface, like a lot of these Community episodes or something like that people are banning now, or Gone with the Wind or Song of the South, or those sorts of things, where it's like, okay, is there a place for this sort of thing anymore? And
can you move past the fact that this was we'll just say maybe this was funnier then, and still enjoy it on some level today?
It is the ever shifting target of where you're balancing an entertainment form with kind of the realities and everything that you get when you step outside of that. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
And I think it's an easy question if you're able to say, well, I can separate myself from the fact that this was 2002. I can watch it in context for that. I can acknowledge that there are problems with it and move past that and say, you know what, it is what it is. I'm not, I'm looking at it for what it is. I'm not going to go past that, but I am going to think about what it's doing and where its faults are. I think the problem with any entertainment, and I think this is why a lot of specifically animated sort of things get pulled, because I think that especially with kids, but I think there are plenty of adults too, who when they watch stuff, and it's become a thing with the film industry where people go to it specifically for entertainment, specifically to shut their mind off and just have stuff thrown at them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a problem. You don't see a lot of people who are watching Friday After Next running out to watch, go renting some Ingmar Bergman films or watching the next Terrence Malick film. It's, it's not necessarily the same audience. And so I do think that when you have films like this that are really designed to just be sit down, light it up, and just kind of kick back and watch a movie, there can be some harm when it still is out there. And I mean, film does live, and it perpetuates that by continuing to kind of have a life after its release date. It's tricky. It's perpetually tricky, and that's why I think studios are still trying to figure out what to do with some of this stuff. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer really ever is going to be. I think it's just kind of really a case-by-case basis for each person.
Right. Because I mean, these are guys both as and I would say, Ice Cube as an entertainer, right? Not just as a guy who's making comedy movies here, but also as a guy who has, spread his message, using an entirely different medium.
Well, yeah, I would say beyond entertainer, right? I mean,
exactly.
He's full on somebody who's vocally kind of speaking out and has messages to say. Right.
And he pushing boundaries is stock and trade for this kind of an entertainer and this kind of a voice. And I think all of the people in this movie as comedians too, as comics, this is the tool set. And I think so. For me, I think I was able to separate a lot of that stuff. It got harder when my kid came in and sat down next to me and said, "Hey, what are we watching?" And we had to pause it and have that conversation.
Yeah.
About how things have changed and how that this is a comedy movie and it's okay for things to be funny as long as we can talk about what they mean and what it does to have this kind of message out there in the world.
Yeah, it can be awkward. My daughter walked in right when Miss Pearly was grabbing Craig's dad's crotch and yanking him down onto herself on the couch, and it's like, oh, she's just like, what are you watching, Dad? It's like, yeah, right. So it's interesting that it's a perpetually challenging element of entertainment, and that's also the nature of comedy, and that's why comedy is the story type that most often, one, feels dated, and two, is frustrating, because when it lasts and it lingers, like things like Trading Places, you start going, gosh, the blackface in that just is so inappropriate, and it's just kind of, it makes me feel uncomfortable to watch it now. But it still is a popular movie, and Eddie Murphy's hilarious, and it still has lines that I love to quote, and that's like the perpetual balance with things like this. And this film, I mean, it certainly has gained its cult audience because there is a lot of funny stuff in it.
We do have some new principles in the movie that I think are worth at least acknowledging the role that they play, which is, I think, funny. In addition to John Witherspoon's back as Mr. Jones, Don D.C. Curry's back as Uncle Elroy, we have Clifton Powell back briefly as Pinky. We introduce Cat Williams as Money Mike and his paramour, Katie Aubert, as Donna.
Mm-hmm.
Very funny addition to the movie. I thought he was great.
I do too. He had a very funny, he fit well in context of what they're doing here, running the little, Pimps and Hoes clothing store in this little junky strip mall with his stuff. And he clearly was having fun kind of playing this part of this rather diminutive pimp.
The suits.
Yes.
Man, the guy knows how to wear the suits.
And this is his first film performance. I think he started out just kind of doing stand-up comedy, and that's really kind of where he got his start. And before he really started moving into more and more films and stuff. And he's one of those guys. He's had issues at some one here in Phoenix where he shouted at a Mexican some rather awful things, and it's just one of those things. It didn't do well for him, and I don't know where he is now with stuff going on in his life, but I know he's had a lot of issues.
Well, he is on a multi-city comedy tour, touring with some of the hottest comedians to date, and that little bio was written by the vice president of Cat Pack Investments. I'm assuming that is also related somehow to cat.
I would assume they're not getting very far right now in this particular point in time.
Right. But he did, he has gotten some attention for Atlanta Alligator Man. That was the episode, Alligator Man, in the show Atlanta, which I have not watched enough of. I hear it's really, really great.
I haven't seen any of it.
You want to talk about something that hits above, that punches above the 6-star rating on IMDb? Alligator Man, this episode is a 9 out of 10.
Wow.
How often do we see a 9?
Not often. That's amazing.
I'm telling you, that Donald Glover, talk about a multi-talented guy.
Yes, indeed.
All right. I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on Ricky Smiley, the Santa Claus. You already mentioned he's kind of a nobody. But Maz Jobrani as Molly, I thought was also very funny.
He was. That was an example of a character that I wish there was a little more of. And this is one of the things, like, I felt like, I don't know, and maybe I'm misthinking, but I felt like the attitude shifts towards certain characters in this film and the previous film weren't as strong or didn't happen at all, like in the first film. And like the way that things shift with him after he gets beaten up and they see him getting beaten up and they kind of quit, they throw their things in and then they're like, oh, well, we're on lunch. And then he fires them anyway, and they get all upset. And, his dad says some things to him like, your camel outside's getting a ticket or things like that. I'm like, gosh, we're going down a road all of a sudden that are like, why are we going down this road? And that was kind of the last we see of him. And it just like, I felt like there was an interesting character there that all of a sudden just got torn apart, and they just turned on him in ways I'm like, why are we all of a sudden acting this way toward him when they know he got beat up? I don't know. And this would have been a moment where and perhaps it boils down to Ice Cube's script, right? I mean, that could have been a moment where they said, hey, we saw you talking to those guys about the security guards. You didn't tell us that something had happened to the last security guards, and now they're threatening us, and they obviously beat you up. It's on you. You should have said something to us. I think with a stronger script, there could have been more sense with situations like this.
Yeah, I guess I can see that. The other perspective of that is like you were talking about with Kat and some of the issues that he has experienced. Like some of that, I think there is at least an effort to document in this movie in sort of a serious and comedic way the sort of interracial racism, right? Yeah. That this is something that's real, and we're going to talk about it comedically because it's going to start with, this is the guy who gave us the job, and we're going to be excited about wearing our incredible outfits, and we're going to be doing the job right now because we're amazing. And then when it gets hard, kind of true colors are going to show, and that's a real part of the experience of being in the neighborhood and being in the being in this shopping center and being in this part of the world that I feel like we can't discount. Like, I'm just saying that may have been intentional. Not that your point is not absolutely right on. I think they could have been a little bit more clear about what that connection is.
It just all of a sudden ends up feeling very hateful. And I just wish that there was more scripted reason other than them acting like it was now his fault, even though it was like I don't know. It just the way that it was structured was pretty poor. But you're right. And that is something that they addressed, like even in the last film with the Joker brothers.
Yep.
There, I remembered at that time, with kind of the Hispanic African-American relationships. And you do have some different tensions. So.
Right.
I also, the other thing, and we talked about Terry Crews a little bit and kind of that whole thing, but I did think it was interesting for a little bit, for a small minute, that they actually paint him as a gay character. But then I'm like, okay, well, it's interesting because here he is, he's watching TV and he's getting excited watching Tupac. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I wasn't expecting this in one of the Friday films. Okay, there's something interesting that they're doing with a gay character that really kind of came out of left field. So that was pretty interesting. And so that it ended up feeling very disappointing when I loved that he saw Money Mike. I'm like, this could be something interesting. Like, what's going to happen with this? And all they did with it was turn him into like a prison rapist in the bathroom. And I'm like, you guys, there was a real opportunity to do something interesting with these characters here. And they totally ruined it. And, perhaps it's playing to the kind of you're always targeting your low-end audience, and maybe that's what Ice Cube was doing when he wrote the script, but it just felt like they really ruined any opportunity to have justified any of that.
Well, it was the easy funny, and as a result, I think is stuck in its own trap of not being able to outlive its own place. But I do agree with you, and I think that I think I had this additional sort of layer, which was how well do you think the character was allowed to explore the transformation that happened to him in prison, right? And how hard prison is. I think that was another opportunity in the movie through Crews, just because of how talented he is and how I think introspective he is as a performer, that would have been a great opportunity to not just sort of make it an experience about, there were just a whole bunch of men in prison and now he's gay, because that again was easy,
right?
And I just think that the character was capable of more.
Oh, absolutely. I felt like they were getting close to it too, which was it was just disappointing that they then just bailed on it completely.
How well do you think then that they were able to sort of handle the relationship between police and the community? Like, did you have any? Did it give you any sense of awareness as you watch Joel Miller and Reggie Gaskins in their apartment, and the relationship between Ice Cube and as he's they have their little exchange? Don't mouth off at me. I'm the victim.
Right. I honestly, it was I found it nice that they included these guys in the film, like actually seeing some cops in here. I was like, okay, this is good. We're actually getting police in here, and that worked for me. The fact that we had them, they weren't necessarily effective all the time, but they were there. And I was like, I felt like in some way, I'm like, maybe there's something that Cube is doing in his script to call out the whole idea that, they're not always great. Sometimes they are just eating donuts, but hey, they are still putting the thieves in the back of their car and taking them away. And, there was a benefit to that. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And I thought it was pretty telling that he also had them confiscating the weed only to be smoking it in their police cruiser in front of their house and do the whole puff, puff, give. That made me laugh to no end.
It was funny to see them in 2002, to see Joel McKinnon Miller as Officer A. Hole, and Terry Crews in the show together. They are exceptionally funny characters as well on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah,
right now.
Very funny.
You wanted to say something else?
No, that's actually, I was going to talk about the police officers. So.
Oh, you were?
Yeah,
well, look at
that.
us.
I know. Same page, man. Same page. I do want to. We should call out. We briefly mentioned. You mentioned Donna, Money Mike's girl, and I will say that is something else that does end up feeling like not quite, fitting in with the way that stories are trying to go these days. I felt like Donna was just an easy script write just for Cube to get a cute girl in there that he could ogle. And really, that's all she's there for. It's really kind of depressing that that's it. Right. And then later we have when Pinky shows up, he brings his 3 girls and, they're spanking him on the ass and just all that stuff. And I'm like, geez, I just felt like it was the baser level of script writing that he was doing. And it didn't do anything for Donna, which was a real shame. So it's frustrating that the women are treated so poorly in these last 2 films in particular.
Well, and the woman that is treated the best in the movie, I would say, is Mrs. Jones. She's back, and
Yes.
she's in the movie for about a minute and a half.
Well, she's at least got some, she's got her eye on her husband, which it had some funny moments.
Let's talk then one more about the relationship between Uncle Elroy and Mr. Jones.
Mm.
They're funny.
They are funny.
This is another opportunity for, how does that commercial work now?
Yeah. All 15 seconds of it.
That is one of those things, though, that I feel like transcends time, and because that's a gag that I don't know. I'm talking specifically about the barbecue restaurant, and the tagline for the barbecue restaurant was. Barbecue, it's so good it'll make you slap your mama.
Right.
And
slap your mama.
In the commercial, Mama turns around at the grill and Mr. Jones turns around and slaps her. And it felt very much like a Zucker level, kind of an airplane level gag. And I still laugh at Airplane.
Yeah, it's weird because I felt like the commercial was the commercial.
Yeah.
And I mean, here's the thing. Airplane, 1980. This, 2002.
2002. That's fair.
There's also the difference. You're making something that feels like a 1980 level comedy from the Zucker brothers in 2002. And it doesn't end up carrying the same
so just to make sure you didn't like it.
It was, I think my problem was, I rolled my eyes at the commercial. It was funny. I loved that he actually, instead of saying brothers for BROS period, he says bruz.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bruz barbecue. And so it had its moments. But I think the thing that turned me on it and turned me against it was when we meet Grandma in the back cooking the barbecue sauce, she actually has a giant welt on the side of her face from being actually struck in the making of the commercial. And that was like, that seems like all of a sudden it went a lot darker than perhaps it should have. Because now it's like he hit his own mom and she's got she looks like she's been beaten. I'm like, this just all of a sudden got really gross.
Well, which I wonder is the message there that, this is a character and a part of the community that doesn't know what they're doing, that doesn't know the damage that they're inflicting on one another.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe.
I felt like that's sort of the gift of the heart of this movie and this series when it works, is when you turn around, you realize, Cube knows as he's writing this. He knows that this is not just a vaudeville gag, that there are repercussions to actions, right?
Yeah,
and I felt like that was I felt like that was noted in that sequence in particular for me. The place where I struggle with it, though, and this is a central sort of failing, I think, of the movie, is that I think Mr. Jones has once again deteriorated in his importance in the movie from the first Friday. And I wonder what is going on that Cube sort of forgot how to write this guy, because I think the first movie, he was amazing. He was funny and goofy, and at the end, he delivered on the heart of the film. The second movie, there was none of that. The third movie, there was still none of that. And I thought, if anything, we get a little redemption. We don't get redemption. We get it that he's the guy who slaps your mama. And so I struggle with it on that level. I thought it was, it did not pay off well.
That is a real shame. And I can't help but feel like having DJ Pooh's involvement in the script for the first film was the strength of that film. And honestly, I think that F. Gary Gray directing carried a lot of weight. And here, we're bringing Marcus Raboy in, who is yet another music video director that Cube taps to come in and make the film. And I'm just like, well, okay, great. But I feel like maybe instead of these first-time directors, go back to Gray and bring him on to do it again and kind of get a nice, strong script with DJ Pooh and bring us something that feels, I don't know, just has a stronger feel to it,
I don't see in terms of Raboy's work. He did Friday After Next. Is it possible that's the only feature he's done?
He did... he did an episode of Platinum, an episode of The Life and Times of Marcus Felony Brown, which was a TV movie, actually. Then it looks like he did 3 more movies, Janky Promoters comedy film.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, with Ice Cube and Mike Epps. And then Pete Holmes, Dirty Clean, and Anthony Jeselnik, Fire in the Maternity Ward. I don't know what those are, if they're...
Yeah, they seem like comedy specials.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
He's done a lot of comedy specials, and for everyone from, like you said, from Pete Holmes to Patton Oswalt to Jimmy O Yang, who's amazing. And those are the last 2 are on right now. I think you can get. Jimmy O Yang's on Amazon. Possible it's an Amazon Prime special, and Patton Oswalt I think is Netflix. So, like they're everywhere and. So I think he really found his place, right? But this isn't an F. Gary Gray movie, right? Not even an early F. Gary Gray movie.
Nope. Yeah, it's a shame. But I mean, hey, I like. But
not that much of a shame. I still laughed. I still thought it was funny, right?
It had its moments. Its moments. I had a lot of problems with it still. They introduce characters that don't do anything. I actually liked that Pinky came back here, but I felt like the way that relationship was repaired, here, was, I was like, that, what? It's like, oh, no, everything's good. I'm like, that's not good. Yeah, that was terrible. Like, that's how you're going to do it? I mean, I liked the character more here because, I guess he's just given more, but still, I don't know. I felt like another opportunity that Cube could have done something to give us a little more. And the other thing that I really felt we could have done more of is this, going back to the first film, like we really meet a lot of people in that neighborhood. What's going on in that check cashing place? Like we see those guys who are chasing them at one point go in there, but we never meet people there. It's like there are a lot of different people or the liquor store or wherever, the Chrome, the Hubcap place, wherever. I felt like there were people in this block, in this strip mall that we could have met. And even if we just spent a little bit of time with, it just really kind of give us a sense of the relationships and the neighborhood of this community that we have in this little strip mall here. That's the sort of stuff that I think Friday exemplified with its strengths that we just don't have.
You have anything to say about our good Glenn McPherson behind the camera? He did Rambo. Do you see connections between 2008's Rambo and this?
That is funny. It's a Christmas movie. And so to that end, I think that they, allowed themselves fun to put up Christmas lights in a lot of places to help kind of provide extra lighting and stuff like that. I don't recall anything special.
It was no Pompeii. He also did Pompeii.
He also did Trick or Treat, which I actually enjoyed quite a bit.
Oh, he's done a lot. Like the guy's got a ton of credits. Final Destination, Resident Evil. He's been in the Resident Evil. He did the last Resident Evil. And so, I mean, it's not like he doesn't have an eye. This is just a funny movie given the rest of his credits. I think that's more where I would go. Yeah, He's done a lot of like action horror and gore stuff. Although, who probably knows him is JJ.
You think?
He's the DP behind Glee, the 3D concert movie, and Jay ran cable cam on that movie.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I will just say, as far as obviously these films, the soundtrack is kind of a part of it. And the opportunity to do some Christmas music, I think, was kind of a fun shift. And so we had some different Christmas covers that were kind of nice to hear here. So it was a nice little shift from the last couple.
I had a thought about why I was put in such a good mood, such a good spirit when watching this movie. My love of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
I do know you love that, yes.
Tell me you didn't get a little bit of that rush when the opening credits comes on.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a note that I had. I loved that they did like these animated Christmas credits. It was very fun. It felt very in the spirit. It was. It also weirdly ended up fitting kind of the tone of the film, so to that end, like that was a great element to include here. It's interesting because it is a Christmas film, and we haven't really talked about that in the sense of it being a Christmas film. It's not like I hear people talking about this is Christmas Vacation. They're going to put it on every year,
right?
Maybe not in my circles. Maybe some people are putting Friday After Next on every year at Christmas time, but. I don't know. I felt like it could have had a little more, I feel like when you're doing a Christmas movie like Christmas Vacation, having something in it about kind of the Christmas spirit or whatever is kind of an important part of that if it is going to be a, quote, Christmas movie. And so that's something that I felt like wasn't in this film that they could have done to really kind of just give it that little extra boost to make it something that I suppose would be an annual classic.
That's a really good point, because what we have here, halfway through the movie, I think is the last bit where we have, Uncle Elroy dressed up as the reindeer, and that was craziness.
Such a funny bit.
It was such a funny bit, and but the rest of the movie, it didn't have to be at Christmas, right? There wasn't much, except for they have a great, out for the Santa outfit, right? The beard for the running around stealing stuff. We have a rogue Santa. I think that was an easy fit to the Christmas season, but this didn't have to take place at Christmas. And there was no sort of feeling at the end of the movie that anybody was transformed, learned their lesson, play ball, right?
Yeah,
like you don't have any of that. But I do love the opening credits, and I think that the whole like Black Christmas Vacation angle was really funny, and I think they did that just right.
Well, and I love that Uncle Elroy, around the part where he's dressed as the reindeer, he says, "We ought to be celebrating Kwanzaa anyway."
That's right. That's
that
exactly
just made
right.
me laugh out loud.
Right.
So it did have those moments.
Yep.
And I think my favorite moment, one of my favorite moments of the film actually, is when Mr. Jones is dressed up like Santa, and he's got the kid on his lap, and he's listening like, "I want the new Xbox, and I want every game, and I want it tonight, and I want it. And I know where you live, Mr. Jones." He's like, "What do you mean, Mr. Jones? I'm Santa Claus." "No, you're not. I know who you are." Like, that was like legitimately funny. "Here's my address."
I know where you live, Mr. Jones. I think this was, we've taken some risks with our second half here. There are a lot of movies that we haven't seen, and a lot of movies that we've seen number one, but not anything else. And and so that makes this season a risk for us. I am still glad that we watched these movies, even though the second one did not live up to the first. The third one doesn't live up to the first, but just not as much. I feel like they were. I feel like it was fun, funny overall, and I got more joy out of them than pain. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing. It's like when you're doing kind of stoner comedies in your movie series, you kind of already know what you're stepping into. I think that there is a certain type of film that you're going to be getting. And I don't know. I guess my hopes, having seen only the first Friday, which I think is pretty well put together film. I like what they did with that one. I guess I was just hoping that the rest of the franchise would hold up, or at least find ways to kind of create as effective a world as that first one did. And I'm disappointed that neither of those lived up to that first one, but I'm glad I saw them. And I mean, I definitely had some laughs. And so I think that's the goal. And I mean, even the second one, which, we rated pretty low, it still had a few moments. And if it wasn't for kind of the lame story of trying to get the money to save the house, like there were interesting elements with the some of the people and Uncle Elroy and stuff that it could have been so much more. And so, I don't know. I'm glad that I watched them because there are moments that I laughed at, and that's what they're for. They're not classics in my mind, but at least I know that they're out there, and if I see them on TV, I know I can get a couple chuckles out of them.
So now we're at the end of number 3. We got to talk about sequels and remakes, Andy. Not just because there is rumor in the wind and controversy surrounding a sequel.
Well, last Friday, we talked about this series ages ago, but we were holding out because last Friday was always in talks. But then, unfortunately, John Witherspoon passed away. And with that, I think the status of it's really been kind of, all over the place. And I think Ice Cube was actually hoping to get it going in 2020 on the 25th anniversary. But with everything happening this year, obviously, it's not happening. And so I don't know. I think because John Witherspoon passed away, I think everybody's just like, who knows what's going on. I mean, he only died last October, and so it's really put things to the wind. But and then Ice Cube, he's very frustrated because he's frustrated with New Line Cinema that they wouldn't commit to make the film while John Witherspoon was around. So it's just one of those things. Honestly, it's a franchise that makes money, and so I'm surprised that they didn't. And I'm surprised that it was such a struggle to get to that point. I don't know what the holdup was. But they did do an animated series, very short-lived, only 8 episodes. Friday, the animated series, ran in 2007. And
amazing. I can't believe I didn't watch the entire thing to prepare for this show.
Well, you saw more of it than I did. I played on MTV2 for those 8 episodes.
MTV2?
Yeah.
Don't remember much else about MTV2.
It was the one that when they were shifting things around, I think, honestly, I don't remember. I felt like MTV2 was showing more of the TV shows, and then MTV was going back to music videos, but then MTV was showing all the TV shows. And so I don't know how they shifted things around. Who knows? I don't know if they still have those two.
Do they still do music videos on MTV? I thought all those were in Amazon and iTunes now.
Yeah, right. Or YouTube. Who knows?
Yeah. How about award season? This had to have cleaned up in 2002.
Just like the smoke out of the end of a joint, Pete, it's all up in smoke. There's nothing. It's bupkis.
Oh well.
Yeah. Oh, well.
All right. How'd it do at the box office? It made its money?
Yeah, Marcus Raboy's third film cost $10 million to make, a notch down from the past one, but still $14.2 million in today's dollars. Being a holiday-themed film, the movie opened November 22nd, 2002, the week before Thanksgiving here in the States, and in the prime window for holiday films. It opened opposite Bond's Die Another Day, The Emperor's Club, 8 Crazy Nights, another holiday film, Treasure Planet, and Solaris. This opened third and only stayed in the top 10 for 3 weeks. It did go on to earn $33.2 million domestically and $273,000 internationally, not much, for a total adjusted gross of $47.6 million. That gives it an adjusted profit per finished minute of $393,000, the worst in the franchise, but still a financial success.
That's amazing. That's like big money for a little movie like that.
Yeah, and again, I don't know why New Line was being so wishy-washy about getting the next one going, because it seems like a franchise that, even if the script isn't that great, it probably still would have made its money back.
All right, Andy, let's see how it works out on the mat.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel. You'll see all the movies we've talked about on this show. You swipe over in your show notes, tap the word Flickchart. You'll head straight into the catalog to this very movie, where you can add it to your own list and see how it stacks up against ours.
First up, Friday After Next or The Birdcage.
Birdcage here.
I will say The Birdcage. Friday After Next or The Host.
The Host.
I will say The Host as well.
It's not off to a good start.
Not off to a good start. Or The Young Girls of Rochefort.
I think I'd watch Friday After Next first.
I'll say The Young Girls of Rochefort.
All right, here we go.
1, 2, 3.
Scissors.
Young Girls takes it. Friday After Next, or everybody's favorite Diane Keaton film, The Little Drummer Girl.
Friday After Next.
I will say Friday After Next. Friday After Next or Certain Women.
Friday After Next.
Certain Women is a slower film, but and Friday After Next has a few moments of levity. I will say Certain Women.
All right, let's do it again.
All right, here we go.
Uh-huh.
1, 2, 3.
Paper.
Scissors.
Cow, Andy, for crying out loud.
Certain Women takes it. Friday After Next or Rocky 5.
Oh, Rocky 5.
Rocky 5? Which one is Rocky 5 again? I'm so bad at these Rocky movies. I never remember which one's which. Is this the one with the son, or is that Rocky Balboa?
I keep wanting to say you remember the one with Bubba Hotep, and that's not who it is. It's the one where he trains the big guy, the protege from Mickey's gym. He trains him. He takes him on as
a street fight at the end.
It ends in the street fight. That's right. Why can't I remember his name?
I don't know. Clearly, I don't remember much about that one.
Tommy Morrison.
Okay.
Tommy Machine Gun Morrison.
I don't know. I'm going to say Friday After Next.
Really? Even with the street fight?
So, I don't know. I don't know. I'll take Money Mike over.
All right, let's do it again. Here we go.
All right, here we go.
1, 2, 3. Rock. Paper.
Rock. Oh,
okay.
You
All
win.
right, there we go.
Rocky 5 takes it.
Come on,
Friday
Tommy.
After Next or Outbreak.
Oh,
jeez.
Friday After Next.
I'll take Outbreak.
Oh, my goodness.
Not thrilled.
All right.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Helicopter.
Scissors.
Oh, right.
All right. Outbreak takes it. Friday After Next or Dinner for Schmucks from our recent Francis Weber series.
In terms of comedy movies,
they both are so problematic.
They're problematic movies, yeah.
But I will say Dinner for Schmucks has a perfect scene when Steve Carell brings the woman to the luncheon. Like that was
the perfect scene.
Jay Roach comedy direction.
I'll give it to you. I have a feeling that's where you're going. Dinner for Schmucks. I'm going to pick Dinner for Schmucks.
All right. Here you go. Look at this. Friday After Next or Next Friday.
Friday After Next.
I think we can both agree Friday After Next. Well, that puts it one spot above Next Friday on our chart in spot 431 out of 460 films, which, it's about a 6%.
I feel like the way you've talked about the movie over the course of the last hour has tilted precipitously down. I think you like the movie less now that we've talked about it.
I don't think that's true.
No?
No, I think I felt pretty much the same from the start.
How did it end up on your chart?
Pete, I did tell you, I did think this was better than the last film.
But you thought the last film sucked.
Yeah, right. So it didn't have far to go. The last film I rated, it ended up in a 1% on my personal flick chart. This one landed in spot 4143 out of 4390, which is a 6% on my flick chart. It's really problematic. It has its moments. It does have its moments. And honestly, it deserves probably more than a 6%. But just like when I was ranking it, those crappy moments are the ones that kept popping in my head. So that's where it is on my personal chart. Where did it land for you?
Well, it landed at, I'm just seeing, yeah, okay. So Friday landed at 187.
Yeah, Friday went high.
Yeah. That was,
as I recall,
that was good.
Was a 5-star film for you.
It was, and this one ended up 854 out of 1456, which makes it a 2-star or a 41%, which is close to 2.5. Like that's close to right in the middle for me. And that's kind of what it felt like. I got enough laughs. I had enough of myself just sort of questioning, what did Cube mean by this? Am I supposed to find this funny or hurtful? And I found myself thinking through enough of it that I feel like that feels pretty good. I'm gonna stick with a 2.5 star and a heart on this one, and 5-star on the first one. And I think I was right with you on The
1.5.
The other,
Friday.
yes, 1.5 on the last one. So, yes, pretty good spread.
I went 1.5 on next Friday with no heart, and it's only a half step higher. I ranked this one 2 stars, but I did give it a heart. And I think there's a big difference between a 1.5 with no heart and a 2 with a heart.
Yeah.
Because this actually had some moments that I really just found a lot more clever and fun and light. And I think that it needed those. And it's frustrating because I feel like Cube has it in him to do a little more. I just feel like he tends to fall on the lazy side with his writing and ends up just not giving as strong of a script as he could. I think he could do a lot better.
There's a little bit of this movie that felt not quite finished workshopping.
Yeah.
Not quite finished.
Well, I mean, just as my last closing thoughts, I do want to say, I think that it was a fun franchise to look at. And now it really makes me want to jump into the Barbershop series, which is another one that I think that I want to say his company was also behind those, the Cube Vision. It was. Yes, I was right.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed that first Barbershop film. And I heard that was another franchise that's really fun. And I'm curious if it kind of falls off the rails as it goes along like this one did. But now I kind of want to check out those ones and see how it all turns out. So
awesome. So what are we doing next, though?
Well, we are jumping into what should be a fun, interesting glimpse into Oscar history. We are going to be looking at the films that were nominated for, I should say, the international films that were nominated for Best Picture. We've only talked about one of those on the show. There have been 11. And the one we talked about was The Emigrants, which was a listener's choice episode that we did a few years back. And so we're going to be looking at the other 10, starting with Grand Illusion in 1938 and going all the way up through the most recent winner, Parasite, in 2019.
Oh, I'm so glad we get Parasite on the list.
We're going to have a lot of good films to talk about on this list, with some also, I think, rather controversial ones. It should be, or at least one controversial one. It should be interesting, and it will be interesting to see how things shift in the world of foreign language films getting nominated, as far as kind of what the rules were and everything, and you know, did they also get nominated in Best Foreign Language Film? Did they not? I'm really curious to kind of dig into this little bit of Oscar history.
Now, for people who are looking to prep for this, have you been through them all now? Did you clean up?
Of the actual films that we're going to be watching?
Yeah.
I have watched them all now, and
do you have any commentary on any that might be hard to access?
No, so the films that we are discussing are not too difficult to access.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to be the issue. I think if people want to do what I'm doing, which is a little crazy, I'm also watching, just to more fully be able to have this conversation with you, I'm watching every film they were nominated against. And I'm watching all of the films that were nominated for Best Foreign Language Film that year, regardless of whether the film we're talking about happened to be nominated or not. Now, I will say some of the films on those lists are rather tricky to find, but on the whole, I don't know. It's been an interesting exploration, and I'm hoping. I mean, it's an awful lot of movies. I'm hoping I can get through it all by the time we jump into that series. I guess we'll find out soon.
Sorry, I was going to say when the movie ends, but clearly it doesn't ever.
The movie never ends. It never ends. No conversation speed. I gotta put another movie on.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Amazon giveth, Andrew.
Oh, yes, they do. In the world of opposites, Amazon sure does.
Oh, real controversy. Today we take on the age-old question of Friday After Next. Is it or is it not a family movie? Two
Right.
Amazon reviewers weigh in. Let's start at the top.
All right, 5 stars from DJH, who says, last of the trilogy went out with a bang. Family favorite. We watch it every Christmas break as a family. It's so funny. Cat Williams and Terry Crews made this movie.
Okay, we have one weighing in for family movie. Sure is.
Family movie. And to answering our
Christmas.
question, they watch it every year.
Let's see what Amazon commenter Here Kitty Kitty has to say. Oh, 1 star, not a family movie. This is definitely not a family movie. I don't understand all the praise for it. It's very vulgar and trashy. If you like that, then it gets 5 stars for trash. Stars is spelled STAHHRS for trash. I don't get into it, so 5 minutes was my limit. That was enough to hear every cuss word known to man and to fill your children's heads with enough sexual content to ruin any innocence they may have.
You know, it'd be really funny if Here Kitty Kitty was like DJH's granddaughter, and you're getting 2 perspectives from within the same family. DJ's, oh no, the whole family loves it. And she's just sitting in the corner. This is so vulgar.
I can't believe my grandmother makes me watch this movie every year. I don't understand what Pimps and Hoes is all about. Thanks, Amazon. It's hard to believe we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You're telling me producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a lot of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchase is made through our links. Give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
We covered a lot of great movies that were adapted from other material in Season 10.
Our Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals is where listeners can purchase the source material behind all our adapted film discussions. It helps support the show at no extra cost when you buy through our links.
In our foreign language Best Picture nominees series, we looked at several adaptations, including Z, The Postman Il Postino, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Letters from Iwo Jima.
We hit the high seas with In the Heart of the Sea from Nathaniel Philbrick's nonfiction book for our Aquatic Killers series.
Definitely a weaker entry in that series.
I bet the book is better.
Oh, me too.
Member bonus episodes featured adaptations like Gone Girl, The Russia House, Ivanhoe, The Hot Rock, The Big Heat, and Naked Lunch.
Oliver Stone brought not just original stories, but also adaptations like Conan the Barbarian, Scarface, Year of the Dragon, 8 Million Ways to Die, Talk Radio, and Born on the 4th of July.
Mary Herron's disturbingly insightful American Psycho was adapted from the Bret Easton Ellis book.
You like Huey Lewis in the News?
Oh my God, it even has a watermark.
And of course, more Stephen King with The Mist, The Green Mile, and The Shawshank Redemption for our King a la Darabont series.
Find links to all of these books and more adapted films on our Originals page. That's thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports our show.
Get the full list of books that we've talked about and start your next read today at thenextreel.com/originals.